Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here at the very beginning of the show, I think Joy has a couple of items for us. What you got for us, Joy?
All right. So, first of all, for those who are listeners of the show, you'll be happy to know Tim may have just gave me a heart attack before we came on. He had to step away and came back, and I zoned into videos on my phone. And he goes, Joy, like we were just talking 30 seconds before I jumped straight up. I mean, I'm sure Tim could see it all over my face.
Yeah, I didn't mean to make you jump out of your skin. I just returned back to the call and unmuted and turned the video on. I was like, Joy, you ready? And she's like, whoa!
That looks comical. All right, so on to more music-y type. I don't know if this is news as much as just something interesting I came across. And Tim is aware of this. There's a video that went viral this week of a band that I'm not familiar with. But if you give them a Goog, you may know them. The guitar player on stage went to throw his guitar at what he thought was his guitar technician, and it was actually his photographer, videographer, whatever you want to call it for the show. And said videographer has no idea what's happening and then proceeds to not catch said guitar.
Yeah, I mean, that's supposedly a cool rock star move. You throw your guitar to your guitar tech. I mean, I wouldn't do that because people don't catch as well as you hope they would.
And guitars are heavy.
Yeah, I mean, the guitars I play are quite light. They're all around 7 pounds, but your average guitar is between 8 and 10 pounds. I mean, that's quite a projectile coming at you.
And if you're like me, it doesn't matter how good you catch. You could still catch it, and then it would like bounce off your own hand and hit you in the face.
Absolutely. I mean, catching objects of that size, Joy, is not for you. Can I just tell you that?
Well, and then like everybody in the comments was like, some people were judging the person with the camera and some people weren't, but like he's holding a camera that probably cost him money. And in his mind, he's thinking, I didn't sign up to catch guitars.
No, and I bet the lens on that camera cost more than that guitar did.
Probably. And then, but it is really funny if you guys haven't seen it, Tim. I sent it to Tim earlier and he was talking about it's just funny to see the guy's reaction, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, he's not the guitar tech. He's not expecting that. He's a photographer, videographer. He's not expecting to catch rock and roll projectiles.
I know, and he had no idea what it was, probably from the angle where he was back at stage. He just sees a very heavy thing flying at him.
Exactly.
But I will say it is very, very funny. Now, on to something about. Oh, I was going to say, Tim, I've never actually seen them throw the guitar to the guitar tech. In real life, they always just hand it to him.
Some people do that. I mean, it's just a rock and roll move, really.
Okay, well, generally, I've always just seen the guy like they just swap him, and the guitar tech slowly runs off stage.
There we go.
All right, so that was what I was thinking about, and then I forgot. So next, in the realm of concerts and kind of, I guess they may throw guitars at this concert, but I doubt it. I just found out that Ben Folds is supposed to be coming to the Harvester in Rocky Mount, Virginia, which is near me and Tim, on June 8th. And the reason I'm bringing this up to you is my friend who I went and saw the Backstreet Boys with, well, Nick Carter, not the whole Backstreet Boys. Because I've seen both, but this was just the Nick Carter concert I talked about. She was commenting on the Ben Folds. It was like, we should go until I saw the ticket prices. Okay. Ben Folds is a decent band. I enjoy their music, but they're not a band that I'm going to seek out. And they're playing the Harvester, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
To keep that in perspective. It's not the it's not like a huge arena type thing. Well, one ticket in the gym roll, I'm talking about in the back, just for gym roll ticket was $100, Tim. And while I enjoy Ben Folds, I'm not spending $200 to see him play at the Rocky Mount Harvester.
Yeah, I mean, I will say one thing. The Harvester is incredibly small. It used to be a furniture shop, amongst other things. And they get some kind of funding from the town of Rocky Mount. So they get name acts in there. I think the whole room holds 500 people, 400 people, maybe
Yes.
something like that. So even if you're at the back, they are good seats because the venue is so incredibly small. I saw Martin Barr there. Toto have played there. I mean, it's like acts that you wouldn't think would play in a room that's tiny, but they do play there. But yeah, I would not pay $200+ to see Ben Folds, even though he did do that song with William Shatner.
That is a caveat. But see, I would probably pay 98 because I've been to the Harvester before. It's very similar to when I went to the Lyric in Blacksburg. They had when Bowling for Soup was there. It's such a small little venue. It was shocking.
Hmm.
But I might spend closer to that for like Toto. Maybe. But Ben Folds, that's just pushing it.
Yeah, unless you're a Ben Folds super fan, and then you're like, wow, only $100. That's great. Let's go and see Ben.
And that's true. So there maybe there's a huge cultural phenomenon of people who love Ben Folds. I don't know, but it just threw me off.
Yeah, but I mean, I would 40, $50, I'd go and see Ben Folds. That'd be interesting to see. But yeah, well, because when I saw the Cherry Popping Daddies there,
Yeah.
that was in the 40, 50 range, and I felt like that was good value for money.
I mean, I spent less. Well, given I think there's only what 1 to 2 members still alive. I spent less when I sent my parents to see the Beach Boys.
Hmm.
I mean, I think there's only two surviving members,
There's
but still.
one, Mike Love.
Oh,
There's
there's
only
only
one
one.
Beach Boy left, and I think he doesn't always go out with them either.
Well, whatever they saw, I spent less. And to be fair, it's just Ben Folds. It's not even like it's Ben Folds 5. Like it's not even the full band. So
Hmm.
that also is another factor, Tim.
So quite literally, Ben has folded in front of your eyes.
I guess that's what he's going for. He's the most British looking person I've ever seen that isn't British.
Hmm.
When
Interesting.
I look at him, I would have assumed he was a British musician, but he's American.
Hmm.
Anyway, so that is everything I have. And now I'll let Tim take over.
Okay, so I have a couple of bits of music news before we get into the topic. So sadly, we had to say goodbye to Eric Carmen this week. Now, Eric Carmen is not someone that is a necessarily a household name. However, some of his big hits are massive, and you would know them. All by Myself and Hungry Eyes. Those
Never
were
gonna fall in love again.
yeah, they're all the big hits of his that you would have probably heard of. We lost him at 74, sadly. But yeah, it's just a shame. We're getting to the point where a lot of these artists, these famous artists and songwriters of songs that we really love, are all getting into their sort of late 70s and 80s and stuff like that. And unfortunately, it's just a fact of life. We're going to have to start saying goodbye to them.
Well, and this Eric played in Ringo Starr and his All Star band. I
Hmm.
think like and then also he was married to Anne Murphy. And the reason I know those facts is because one, Family Guy made a reference to Anne Murphy, but two, because I saw this music news. I was thinking about doing it. So I looked at this earlier because it was 2 days ago that he passed away, or was it only a day?
It was a couple of days ago.
All right. Well, rock in peace, Mr.
Absolutely.
Eric.
Absolutely, Mr. Eric Carmen. Rock in peace indeed.
Uh,
I do have one other piece of music news, as I said. This is about Neil Young. Now, the musician Neil Young in January 2022, Talking is Hard this
Words
evening.
are hard, harder words.
Absolutely. In January 2022, he pulled all of his music off of Spotify. The reason being is that they had a podcast on there that was a Spotify exclusive, and he was not very happy with how that person was conducting themselves and their politics, etc. So he made a protest because Neil Young makes protests because that's what he does. He writes protest songs, and he's very vocal about all the things that he believes in. So he said, I'm not going to let them have my music. And he pulled it off of Spotify. Crosby, Stills, and Nash followed after that. And Joni Mitchell followed after that.
Do you
But
know if they
Neil,
pulled the Buffalo Springfield music though? I wonder because that's kind
I,
of really his protest music.
yeah, I'm not sure. I know certainly those artists that very publicly pulled their music off the platform. And again, all of those people are activists. All of those people
Yeah,
have made statements with their music. So it doesn't surprise me that that's something that they would do.
gotcha.
However, Neil Young has decided he's putting all his music back on Spotify. He made some catty comments about how it was a low resolution streaming service with low quality MP3 sounds and stuff. Because I don't know if you know, Neil Young came out with this thing called the Pono Player. Are you aware of that?
No.
It was 10, 15 years ago or something, he come out with a high resolution digital music player called the Pono player
Of
because he felt
course.
that MP3 files were too poor quality. So he's been a sort of a champion of high resolution digital music for some time. So he made all these catty comments about how he's putting it back on Spotify, but he said, "Yeah, I wouldn't listen to it on there, just because he said the quality is terrible and it just hurts your ears and all this kind of stuff." But apparently, the reason that he's putting his music back on is the podcast that he's not a fan of is now available on lots of different platforms. So it used to be a Spotify exclusive, and it's now available on a number of platforms. So he feels that is everywhere now. So he said my protest is over.
I mean, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I guess making it a Spotify exclusive makes it feel like the company is backing it. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if it's available everywhere, it just feels like something everybody does. So I guess that could, in theory, make sense for the protest. But it's kind of like maybe he just saw dollar signs and wants to put them back there.
I mean, possibly, but I mean, music on Spotify doesn't make a great deal of music, but I mean, it's probably $50,000 here and $50,000 there. So for an artist of that ilk, that's going to get millions of streams of Cinnamon
Yeah.
Girl and Needle and the Damage Done and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it would add up real quickly. I don't know. It's kind of a weird argument, but I see his point on how now that it doesn't feel like it's direct to Spotify now.
Yeah, and as I said, this is not out of character for Neil Young, and it's celebrated that it's Neil Young because he's always protested about things that he felt weren't right. So it makes
Sure.
sense that it was him that did that.
Yeah. Well, I'll be happy to go add some to my Spotify playlist because you guys know Crosby, Stills, and Nash goes hard at CBS. So
Absolutely 100%. But I can tell you, as of today, we're recording this on March 14th, Pi Day, no less. It's not currently up on Spotify because I looked before we started recording.
darn, I'll have to wait. Aisle seven's gonna be so mad.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll take a couple of days and it will sort
Yeah.
itself out. But there you go. Okay. So let's move on to the topic this week. And now it's my turn to pick the topic. Now, we've done some episodes recently, which are whole album episodes. We did the Glee episode, we did Jagged Little Pill, and we've done other albums too. Rumors was another one that we did. So I figured it was about time that we brought it back to one of my famous keyword episodes.
Of course.
And yesterday, I had my HOA meeting. And if you don't know what an HOA meeting is, in the United States, a lot of like housing developments where people purchase their own homes have a homeowners association, which controls those those sort of grounds and what you can do and what you can't do. Some of them are horrifically bad. And the one that we have is neither here nor there, really. We just mow the grass and get rid of the snow and replace a bit of siding once in a while. And there's some general insurance. If someone gets hurt outside, it's covered by that. And it's not terribly invasive, it's fair to say. And I'm on the board of directors because I somehow got involved in that because I went to a meeting once and they begged me to be on the board of directors because no one was interested in it.
Sounds about right.
Anyhow, with that in mind, I thought this week we would do a episode about house music.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
not house music as in housey, housey, I see that kind of house music.
No oonce in the background.
Yeah. But this is just songs with house in the title.
All right. I always wonder. So when Tim does these episodes, there's one song that comes to mind. It's always that I think is going to be on the list. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So I wonder if our listeners do the same thing. I'm like, house. Okay, songs about houses.
Well, I tell you, as we go through the list, if that song that comes to mind for you, just shout out Stevie Nicks or something.
Okay. Me raffle.
Yeah, yeah. Write it down and don't show the audience.
I wrote down Stevie Nicks as Dang it. Let me try this again.
Joy is writing down her song. She's writing down her song.
All right, here we go. Got it.
Okay.
It's
So
official.
let's open the floor with this one. This is Aretha Franklin, and this is the song "The House That Jack Built."
This is not the song that came to mind, but this is a good song.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as I've said many times, Aretha Franklin is the only person who really qualifies for a Grammy. Well, like, when you get these pop acts winning Grammys, it's like, no, that's not for you. It's for Aretha Franklin.
And so then I guess that, I mean, would you even need an award ceremony then? Or would you just mail them all to her house?
I think it just be. I mean, we lost Aretha sadly many years ago, but
Yeah,
we should mail them to whoever looks after her
her
estate.
estate. Yeah, that's fair. Um, and this song is kind of interesting because it rhymes upon itself many times over, but also it has some more detailed, like a lot of Aretha Franklin songs do. I hate to use this comparison, kind of like what we talk about with Freddie Mercury, where the lyrics are very detailed or
Hmm.
very, it's almost like storytelling in a way, or comparably, I think, to what you hear on the radio nowadays.
Sure, and
And
even
so I
like
like this one.
yeah, like the instrumentation, this is plowing through with the
Hmm.
horns. I mean, this is good stuff. It really is.
And it says Jack about 1,000 times.
Well, it's a house that Jack built, for goodness sake.
He did build the house by hand on the land or whatever it says. All right, but this wasn't the song, Tim. Not the song.
Well, there you go. Well, as I said, the Stevie Nicks alarm can go off at any time, and you will tell me.
Okay. What's the next one?
Okay, so this one, I haven't gone with the artists which you would normally associate with this song, but this is the Blues Brothers from the soundtrack album to the film, and this is their version of Jailhouse Rock.
Well, if you know anything about me, you will know Joy is a big Blues Brothers fan, has seen all of the films many times, and I believe their versions of a lot of songs to be superior. Also, Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, Steve Cropper, Aretha Franklin is in the Blues Brothers as well. She's not in this song, but you guys
No,
get the idea.
and also, you also have the Godfather of Soul is in
Mhm.
that film too. Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, is in that film.
I love the Blues Brothers. So anything they do, I think, is the superior version. Is there a reason you chose their version, Tim, or do you just want to change it up?
Because I went into iTunes and I wrote house, and it was the first one that came up. And often when we do these episodes, I like to do the non-standard version, just to spark the
Yeah,
conversation, etc.
that's true. Oh, we also forgot, Tim. James Brown is literally in the Blues Brothers.
Sure.
And then Tommy Bones, whatever his name is,
Tom
Malone
Bones
or something.
Malone.
Tim said it so smoothly. I'm like, Tommy. I was thinking Tom Jones beats Tom Bones.
Yeah, Tom Bones Malone. He was I think it's a sax player, a trumpet
Hmm.
player, and he played in David Letterman's band. And the funny thing is that it's mostly the Stax rhythm section who
Yeah.
played with the Blues Brothers, and Paul Schaefer, who was David Letterman's musical director, and also the musical director of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and in around a lot of great music through the years. He was supposed to be in this film, and for whatever reason he couldn't do it, or there was some clash that he couldn't be in that film. But that's why he's in Blues Brothers 2, because he was not in the first one, they said, oh, we'll definitely get you in the second one.
That makes sense. I didn't even think about it. I've heard he's just one of the popular names that everybody talked about when they bring up the Blues Brothers.
Absolutely. When I
So
say
you
Blues Brothers 2, I mean Blues Brothers 2000.
thousand. Yes. Now here's a question for you, Tim. Have you actually watched the Blues Brothers, at least the original?
Yes, I've seen the original many times.
Okay.
Blues Brothers 2000, I have never seen that.
I've seen it, but not near as many times as the original. Because when I think of the Blues Brothers, I think of them in the police car running away, the chaotic chase scenes. Like that's the Blues Brothers to me.
Absolutely, and they're doing rawhide in a bar with chicken wire.
While people are throwing beer bottles at their
Yeah,
you know,
many people in England ask me, have I played in a place with chicken wire yet? And I feel I need to play in a place with chicken wire because I've never done that.
well, my older sister did used to go to a bar that she said had chicken wire in North Carolina, Tim. So maybe I'll just slip you the name and you can see if you can get a gig there.
Yeah, once played a place called Riders in the Country in Randleman, which is just outside Greensboro, North Carolina. And it looks like it maybe had chicken wire once, or you could retrofit chicken wire very easily because of the way the stage sort of just sat in the wall, and
Yeah.
the fact there was like doors on the side to get out. So you could do that. And as I may have mentioned on this podcast before, that's the biggest fight I've ever seen in my life was going on in there. And the fact I had a 8 pound piece of wood in my hand, I actually felt very safe as that was going on.
You could at least hit somebody with something if it came down to it.
If I needed to. Luckily, it didn't come to that.
I like that that was your thought process, though. Humans are so like, we're always worried about me, 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 me. At that moment, you're like, but how do I protect myself?
Yeah, I was looking at self-preservation. I wasn't interested in whatever shenanigans was going on in this fight. I was interested in self-preservation and then running away.
Fair enough. All right. Well, that's, I guess, enough on the Blues Brothers. What's our next housing related song?
Okay, so this is one I don't know whether you're familiar with, but I'm going to say it anyway. Now,
Okay.
this is the band Blur, and I think we've spoken about Blur before. And this is the song Country House.
Can honestly say I've never heard this song.
Lives in a house in a country. In a
I mean, that
country.
sounds like the songs in the late 80s to 90s that Blur was around. Probably English rock band, London. So probably, I'm sure I may have heard it.
Yeah, this was a hit. They made a video for it and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I assume you know Coffee and TV
Yeah, I do.
because Hannah really likes the video of Coffee and TV with the little milk cartons.
Yeah, it was pretty popular. But I don't know. I've seen Coffee and TV. There's like a song called Girls and Boys that sticks out to me. Blur, like I said, I almost know them more for the fact that they were like in a fight with Oasis back in the day.
Yeah, and I assume you know Park Life as well.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, you're right. I've heard that before. I mean, they were popular in the US, but not like extremely.
Yeah, they were very much a British act that was very popular in the UK.
So, but I feel like if you were going to pick like who was popular in America, Oasis probably beat Blur.
Yeah, I can see that. So certainly what I read about now would suggest that Oasis are the ones who were the more popular of the two.
We're just comparing boy bands for the rest of the episode. Well, were you into BSB, Tim? Or were you more of an NSYNC kind of girl?
Well, it's hard to say. I was more into Boyzone myself, you know. I was more of a Boyzone. Ronan Keating, he was my man.
Five. The other day, but you got to spell it number 5 Ivy.
So Joy wrote to me in the week on Messenger, and she was going on about five, and I said, "Do you realize they are single-handedly responsible for the
It's
Brian May,
true.
Roger Taylor, Queen plus whoever rebirth? They were there first. So Brian May had his solo career in the 90s. The whole Queen brand had kind of dropped off, and they wasn't sure whether they wanted to do that again, and they decided to relaunch the Queen world." With a collaboration in the year 2000 with Five. I mean, why would
All
you
the
do that? Was George Michael not available? You know,
Elton John.
was he not available? Or and Lisa Stansfield, she sang with at the tribute concert. Was she not available? No.
Heck,
Let's
Miley
have
Cyrus would have been
Five.
better.
And the worst thing about it is they sing the lyrics as it is. Then they add a new verse in, and the verse is terrible.
That's like the most 90s fact I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah, and I remember watching it. I was at my friend Paul Summerton, who's been on this podcast. I was at his house. I was a little drunk, if I'm fair to say. And it was
Fair
a big
enough.
news on the Brit Awards that Brian May and Roger Taylor were going to appear with Five. You know, I'd read rumors that this was going to happen. So he puts the TV on and you see him and it's like this We Will Rock You thing. There's all these people drumming.
Oh, God.
And then the stage parts and there's Roger Taylor on his drums. Then Brian May comes out. He's still got the black hair at the time and he comes out with a red special. And watching it, I don't even think he's playing live.
So for those who don't know, Five was, I guess, a British boy band that came out from the same people, but the same team that managed the Spice Girls. And like the mid to late 90s is when they came out. And they had like maybe the song that I always think of is Baby When the Lights Go Out, that one, because that was super popular when I was a kid at the rock skating rink. And there's everybody get up And then there's Keep On Moving until, so there's like three or four songs you probably, even if you don't know, you know them.
Hmm.
So it's just really funny that of all the bands to help relaunch Queen, it's five.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes absolutely no sense at all. And the thing is that they were not even a huge boy band at that point. I
Mhm.
mean, they had their moment, but I mean, like I mentioned earlier, Boyzone with Ronan Keaton being in the band, but Boyzone at the time, they were a huge boy band, or even like S Club 7 or any of those kind of quote unquote manufactured pop acts were much bigger than five. Why five?
And why not a rock band?
Yeah, or a great strong singer.
Literally. I mean, like you said, was Elton John not
Mm.
available? Like, come on.
Yeah, I don't get it. Alison Moyet, fabulous singer. What was
Yeah.
she? I'm sure she was available.
Literally anybody else but five.
Oh goodness me.
Anyway, all right. Well, I forgot what we were even originally talking about.
Well,
So
let's
I
let's
guess
let's move on to the next song. So this one, I'm taking the version by Shaking Stevens, which is I don't know if that's someone that you're familiar with, but you'll probably know the song.
okay.
This is This Old House.
I do know this song, but I've never heard of Shaking Stevens. Who's say Shaking Stevens?
Shakin' Stevens is from the 80s. He
Okay.
was like a 50s throwback type singer, and
No.
maybe he had a bit of a quiff going on, and he was doing songs like Green Door, but famously This Old House was like the big hit, if you will, that he had.
Oh, is he the one that wore like a jean jacket in
Yeah.
the video? Okay, yes, I've seen this before. I wouldn't have known he was called Shaking Stevens, but he was giving very Elvisy 1950s kind of vibes
Yeah,
in
it's like
the
a
video.
50s throwback type thing. He's referenced by Alan Partridge in the second season of I'm Alan Partridge. He goes, "Not my words, Lynn, the words of Shakin' Stevens."
That's so random. So is he American?
No, he's British.
British. Okay, that may be why it wasn't registered with me. I was just checking, okay?
Yeah,
But I mean,
I would
I've
have.
heard this song 1,000 times before.
Yeah, I mean, it's been covered by absolutely everybody, but it's just I didn't think that Shaky, as he was known to his fans, was was known on this side of the Atlantic, and I was quite right with that.
Yes, you are. I will say, this is definitely not the song that I was thinking. Shaking Stevens didn't come to mind earlier.
Okay, so you're the thing that you've written down is still yet to be revealed.
Still not there. It probably won't. And then at the end, I'm just gonna have to say it. Everybody be like, "Well, that was lackluster." Anyway, what's the next song?
Okay, so I'm gonna go with this one. So this is by Talking Heads, or as they say, the Talking Heads, and this is the song "Burning Down the House."
I mean, I can't hear that without just going, "Burning down the house." That's all I can think of is its very famous rhythm.
Yeah, and I would say this is not my favorite version of this. I mean, this is a great version. And the version I have up here is actually the studio version, but they also do it on that Stop Making Sense live concert that I saw in the cinema recently, and of course the live album that goes with it. But the best version, in my opinion, is by Tom Jones. And Tom Jones did it with Nana from the Cardigans on his Reload album, and they made a video and everything. And that is by far the better version, in my opinion.
Well, I was going to say, I recently saw, and I don't know how you guys will feel about this, but Paramore, on their live concerts, they've been doing a version of Burning Down the House, and it's quite good. So
Interesting.
I was going a different way with what Tim was saying. But Tom Jones makes sense too. That ranks up
Absolutely.
there.
And as I may have said before, Nana, the singer from the Cardigans, I was once in a bar in Jönköping called Pour Tapetan, which is called On the Wallpaper. And I was in there, and across the other side of the bar was Nana from the Cardigans because she's from Jönköping.
Well, there you go. The other version I think of a lot is the Dave Matthews Band. They have a version of it.
Sure, and it's been covered by him, and it's been covered by a number of artists. I mean, I suppose if you like, the definitive version is probably the version from Stop Making Sense by the Talking Heads, the live concert. But yeah, for me, it has to be Tom and the person from the Cardigans.
Well, to be fair, the lead singer from the Cardigans has a wonderful voice, so
Yeah, she has a very unique voice.
She does.
It's kind of like a little voice.
it's airy.
Yeah, it's kind of little, but it's powerful.
And those are the best voices to like people. That's kind of how you want because she's very good at almost doing like a falsetto, which
Hmm.
really protects your vocal cords. Because if you can be powerful without being loud, they're not rubbing together near as much.
I like that song by them, My Favorite Game.
I like a lot of the Cardigans, and I owned quite a few of their albums over the time.
Yeah, Love Fool is another fantastic song by the Cardigans.
That'll be in my head for the next 6 weeks. I will say that was a pretty big radio hit here. You could still turn on like 99.1 and Love Fool might be on it.
Yeah, I would say Love Fool and My Favorite Game are probably the main Cardigan songs that I certainly heard around that time.
Somebody's gonna like come in and they're just gonna hear this part and they're gonna be like, Cardigans. I thought they were talking about sweaters. They're just gonna hear that sample and be like, what is he talking about? What are
Yeah.
those sweaters?
Yeah, for those of you just tuning in now, we are not talking about apparel, as they say in these bars.
Well, I guess if I should I call it a jumper for our British fans?
Yes, that's correct. His name would be a jumper.
I wasn't sure if cardigans were technically jumpers.
Well, a cardigan is a jumper which has buttons down the front or a zip
Yep.
down the front, and then it's like a little, like it's like a jumper jacket, if you will.
I have one. Not that this is a podcast where people could see, but I keep this one on my desk chair.
Yeah, that's probably a cardigan or a
Yep, it has.
cardi, a cardi, as they say.
Do they call it that?
Yeah, you got your cardi.
That's very British. I don't think we do that in America. If you asked me if I've got my cardi, I would think you were like asking for my ID card. I would get lost in the translation there.
There we are. Well, as you know, this podcast is 30% music, and the rest of it is Joy and I talking about similarities and differences between the US and the UK.
Tic-tac-toe. What do you call it in the UK?
Noughts and crosses.
It's so weird to me because you guys are so literal, like knots and crosses, like what you're drawing on the paper. Where did Americans come up with tic-tac-toe?
I don't know. It's noughts and crosses. You do your little square, and then you put X's and zeros. It's noughts and crosses.
So on online, I was watching a video where people were discussing this, and they recently asked somebody on a video like, "What's tic-tac-toe?" and they called it knots and crosses, and it started this whole debate.
Well, I can tell you the debate today in the lunchroom, which is the happening place where I work, was people once again were entertained by the fact that the structure across the road from where I work is a car park, and in fact, it's a multi-story car park. And I'm surprised people have not heard me say that many times, but they were like, "What do you call that thing again?" I said, "It's a car park."
It's like when they call the the people who hold the signs for like kids like crossing guards, and
Yeah,
you guys call them like lollipop people.
yeah. I mean,
It does look like
when
a
I
lollipop.
was growing up, it was a lollipop lady or a lollipop man.
I mean, it does look like a lollipop. You guys are very literal in what you say.
Yeah, a lollipop person would be on a Pelican Crossing.
A pelican crossing?
Pelican Crossing is like that's got stripes on it in the road. It's a Pelican Crossing.
Why would it just be are pelicans walking all over the place in England?
No, I don't know why it's called a Pelican Crossing, but that kind of crossing is called a Pelican Crossing.
This was just in there going, are the lollipop people stopping traffic for pelicans that much in the UK? It doesn't seem like a UK bird.
I don't think the pelican is native to the UK, in fact, so I have no idea.
I just Tim's face and I was like, what? I want to do it. I mean, I've heard you say a lot of them, Tim, and I'm pretty used to, a lot of the basic terminology, but you have not said Pelican Crossing.
And
America, we just
this
call it like a crosswalk.
and when this episode posts in about 3 weeks' time, I will receive a message from your sister going, "What?"
It's exactly what will happen. She'll be like, are you serious right now? Am I a punk? Is this real life?
No, you can look it up. Pelican Crossing.
I want to Google it just to find out why. Why
Go
is
on,
it
Joy.
called that?
Give it a Google live on air. The listeners want to know.
Pelican Crossing.
Joy
UK.
is looking that up as we speak.
Okay, under UK law is a type of pedestrian crossing where both pedestrians.
Why is it a Pelican Crossing?
The crossings began to be phased out in Great Britain in 2016, being replaced with puff. Oh, never mind. I thought that was going to tell us the answer. It didn't. Ignore everything. Now they're called puffing crossings, everybody, which is also another bird. But anyway.
Puffin Crossing. I left in 2011. I've not seen a Puffin Crossing.
But I can't find why.
Bring back the pelican. That's what I say.
I can't.
Oh, well.
There was an earlier failed experiment of a panda crossing. I can't remember that. Why are they all named after? Oh, and previously there was also a zebra crossing.
Yeah, zebra crossings.
Why don't they? Puffing crossing, a special feature where the green man light flashes to indicate the pedestrians may continue walking. I don't know, but they're all named after. There was a panda, a zebra, and now they're puffing. I can't find out a reason why.
I have nothing. All I have is
I don't know. But Tim, if you go back to the UK, you have to call it a puffing crossing now.
well, I'm pelican for life, Joy.
That's like the Oxford comma. Are you team Oxford comma or not? Puffing or pelican?
Exactly. Okay. Well, let's steer this podcast as loosely about music back to music.
I cannot find out why they're called that. I'm sorry, guys.
This is like gas marks all over again.
It really is. All right. What's next?
Okay. So this is a song from a soundtrack. Now, have you ever seen the film 28 Days Later?
Yes, I have.
Now, as you know, I'm not really a fan of cinema as an art form generally, but I tell you what happened is I saw it wasn't even a documentary, but it was like a news piece in like some news magazine show about this film when it was being made. And what was very appealing to me is it wasn't done with computer graphics. So if you've seen the film 28 Days Later, you see these desolate scenes of London where it's like completely empty.
Yeah.
And there was no computer graphics used, no retouching or anything, because the production at the time didn't want to do that. So what they would do is they would go down into central London at like 4 a.m. or something, just as the sun had come up, and they would maybe shoot 5 seconds of footage, and then come back the next day, and then come back the next day. There's a scene where it's right by the Cenotaph in London, which is a very busy part of London. It's a memorial. It's like a war memorial, very busy. And what they wanted a double-decker bus on its side with trash everywhere, and that's what they wanted. And apparently the Westminster Council or whoever controls that said, you can't close this down for more than 4 minutes or 5 minutes or something. So they shut the road. They had a crack team. Shut the road, tipped the bus, throw the trash, filmed it, put the bus back, got rid of the trash, opened the road, and it was like 6 minutes and it was gone.
Somebody literally had a heart attack after.
Yeah, they planned it all out how they were going to do it. So when I was hearing about this, I thought, well, this is really interesting because a lot of filmmaking now is all done in computer graphics and it's all like wacky physics that doesn't exist. And it kind of like piqued my interest a little bit. So I saw this film when it came out, and it's not the kind of film that I would normally watch, but I really love this film. It's so good.
It's a really good movie. Like, if you've never seen it, for those who don't know, it's a horror film.
Yep.
But it's like a psychological horror. There's a man who's in an accident type situation. We won't go any more than that. But it's super interesting. And I had heard, and it does, when you watch it, it does look very different than when you see, like Tim was saying, what feels like always computer graphics. Like, it has a different feel to it.
Yeah, and it's also shot. It wasn't shot on a camcorder, but it was shot on something where the quality is not great.
Yeah.
So it has a very different feel about it than like a big, bright Hollywood type production. Anyhow, the reason that I'm bringing all this up is
there was a song.
the song from the soundtrack by John Murphy called "In the House in a Heartbeat," and it's like the theme music of this song. And there's sort of this, because the film is about this fictional disease called rage that turns people into zombies.
Yep.
And as sort of the film goes through, it's a bum, 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 bum.
That's the sound kind of like a heartbeat.
Yeah, and it's that song. And if you go on YouTube, there's so many people that have covered that, done like guitar versions and like classical music versions and stuff like that. But it's the way that the chords move and the notes move through it is so ominous.
It is. It works so well for this specific song, like movie too, because it has that kind of feel. And like I said, I always assume that it's kind of supposed to be a heartbeat, which makes me think of the tale. What's that book that everybody had to read in high school? Um, Dang it, the Telltale Heart. Did you ever read the Telltale Heart, Tim?
No.
It's about a guy who like a heartbeat under his house and it was beating and it was a whole thing that like the dent. It kind of reminded me of the way that book is set up,
Yeah.
which works for this movie because you only have 28 days, so it's like a race against time.
Yeah. They made a sequel called 28 Weeks Later, which is like
They did.
yeah, which is like the what supposedly happened after they contained the
Huh.
rage. Apparently they sort of completely quarantined the UK, and then they because the zombies only last so long, so everyone was quarantined for a certain amount of weeks or days. So 28 weeks after the fact, all the zombies are gone and there's a controlled zone and all this kind of stuff. And it is terrible. It's nowhere near as good as the original. And
Darn.
there's a scene in it which is your giveaway that it's no good. So it's based in London in the UK, and there's
Hmm.
I think they're American military personnel are involved with controlling the zone or something like that. And then, of
Yeah.
course, the zombies come back and then they have to escape from the zombies. And it's a bunch of American folks. And the only way that they can escape is break the window to a car and drive off. And the car is a manual transmission and they knew how to drive it.
And that's such a very specific thing that you noticed. There's this movie called The Spy Who Dumped Me, and there's two Americans running from a bad guy in it, and they try to steal a car in the UK, and of course it's a manual. Neither of them knew how to drive it, so they end up running the car to a little side like magazine stand and putting it in park, getting out, jumping, and running.
Yeah, I tried to teach Hannah how to drive a manual transmission once, and then after a few, 3 or 4 of the car being stalled, she said, I think we'll move on from this. I said, I think so.
I do know the basics. I do know how to drive one, but I haven't done it. Like I learned it, but I haven't used it. So would I trust myself to do it? No, my transmission might be on the ground.
Yeah, I have not driven a manual transmission car since February 2011. I'm sure I could do it again if I had to, but I honestly don't see a time when I'd ever have to drive one again.
Oh, some people talked about like that's a good deterrent from getting your car stolen in America. If you have a stick shift, they're less likely to steal your car.
Yeah, but you can't even buy a manual
Mm-mm.
transmission car. It used to be like the very, very base model of anything that you would buy. They made a manual transmission, but most manufacturers in the United States are phasing that out. And also, all the electric cars that are coming in don't have a transmission. It's just like on
Yeah.
or off. So there's no gears anyway.
Well, and like me and Tim both have cars that are kind of like manuals for dummies. I'm pretty sure you've told me yours is the same way, Tim, where it's got like it's an automatic, but you can use the different gears with the plus and minus. No one
Mhm.
ever does that.
No,
I've used it once since I've had the car, and that was just to test it.
yeah, I think my Ultima, the one I have, the one I hit the deer with, which I still haven't got back, but that's a story for another time. Um, that doesn't have it. Hannah also has an Ultima, which is my old car, and I think hers does have the thing where you can
Hmm.
manually flick up and down the gears if you want to, but it's completely pointless because the computer knows when to change better than you do. I mean, if you're driving a Mustang or a performance car, which you would probably get a manual anyway if you're driving a sports car, but if
Yeah.
you had the automatic version of it, you might want to do that. But for a regular car that people drive to work and back, why would you want that?
Well, and then what I hate, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, Tim, and I have yet to figure this out. Maybe it's because they're all manuals, but why is it the person who drives the sports car on the interstate is the one that like seems to want to go to the slowest? Like it never fails that the car that you pass on the interstate will be the Mustang or the Corvette or something like that, and you'll see a man who looks like he's going through a midlife crisis driving it. And, like it never fails, and I'm like, why buy them if you're not going to go fast?
Well, I think the thing is that if you're driving a regular car like everyone does, and you're in a 65 and you do 70, and you happen to see a member of the police force at the side of the road, they're likely not to pay too much attention to you. If you if
I
you
mean, I
if you do
guess
70 in a 65 in a Mustang or I don't know a Camaro or something, it's likely to get a little bit more attention, I would
fine.
imagine.
I guess it's a good theory. This
But
podcast has literally not been about music at all.
or houses or anything like that.
Like it's literally like Tim says a song and then we talk about the complete opposite. Anyway, what's next?
Okay. So this is a couple of songs by this artist, and I don't know if it's an artist you're super familiar with. And
Okay.
I think we may have spoken about this artist before on the podcast, but I don't know. And this is the band Madness.
Yes, I know them, I think, because you brought them up before, Tim.
Okay,
Not
well,
like in depth, but I know what they are. They're like a pop band.
yeah, and they famously had the guy on saxophone in the videos who used to fly through the air.
Hmm.
So this is a twofer. This is Our House and House of Fun. Have you heard of either of these songs before?
Absolutely. Our house in the
In the
middle
middle
of
of
our
our...
street. Yeah, that song was a big hit. You could probably turn on the radio and still hear it here. I would say this is what I kind of define as a radio hit. Now, this would have been, I think Madness was a UK band, right?
Oh, 100%. The lead singer was a guy called Suggs, who looks
Hmm.
very much like my Uncle John, if I'm being honest.
He looks like an American crooner type, like with the little pompadour going down his head.
Yeah, I mean, they're still out there playing. I think that the various members of Madness don't. I think some of them all live abroad now, but they get together and do these Madness things. And they had a festival for a while called Madstock.
They did?
Yeah, I mean, this was years ago.
So are they like one of those bands that has a weird cult following?
Yeah, I mean they were huge. I mean they had lots of other hits. I mean, famously had that song "It Must Be Love."
Hmm.
One
Yeah, that
step
one was
bit.
popular here too.
Yeah, I think they started off as like a two-tone ska band type thing, and they sort of got into kind of a more of a pop sensibility. They also did a song called "My Name Is Michael Caine." Have you ever heard that?
I haven't heard of that, but that sounds very ska if I was gonna guess.
Well, it's a ballady pop song type thing, but every now and again, Michael Caine comes on and says, "My name is Michael Caine."
Yeah, that sounds about right for what I can tell. I mean, that's a good point about what, like, kind of how you define their genre. I think you did a good job, like ska beats pop band, and they kind of have that mighty mighty boss tones feel to them. So
Yeah, they did. But I said they really sort of got more into a kind of pop type thing towards the end of their career. But at this
yeah.
point, they're like a legacy act. I don't think they're releasing new music, but they're sort of going out and touring these sort of nostalgia circuits, as it were.
I just wouldn't have thought of them as having a cult following. That's interesting. Now, House of Fun is the song that's about like coming of age, right?
Yeah, it's a coming of age anthem.
Yeah, I've heard that one, but definitely not as much as Our House. Now, Our House, I would say, was used in like every late 90s movie in America.
Hmm.
Like it was one of those background songs. They probably make good royalties off of that. I'm sure it was in Clueless and everything.
Yeah, and it also they famously appear in an episode of the TV show The Young Ones, and they perform Our House on that.
That's how you get the money, Tim. You got to start rolling in those royalty fees.
Yeah, have you ever seen the TV show The Young Ones?
No.
It was
Is it an American TV show or was it a British TV
it
show?
was Rick Mail and Adrian Edmondson. It had Alexi Sale in it.
That is none of those words are saying anything to
Nigel
me.
Planer as Neil. If famously, there's an episode of it that has Motorhead in it. No.
I mean, I know who Motorhead is. That doesn't help me know the show.
Well, Joy, when we finish this recording, we're going to have a moment together, and I'm going to show you.
The
I'm going to
youngins.
show you I'm going to show you Motorhead on the Young Ones.
All right, there we go. Well, that's up for me, guys.
There we are. Okay. All right. Well, let's move on to our next song. This is a song by They Might Be Giants, and this is the song Birdhouse in Your Soul.
Still not the one that came to mind, but a good choice, Tim. A good choice nonetheless.
And I take it this is a song that was popular here. I'm assuming it probably
Yeah,
was.
it was popular. I mean, it's probably one of the ones that if you turned on the radio, you would still hear. You definitely heard it in a lot of movies too.
Mm-hmm.
Late 90s movies.
They had another song which was a cover. It was Istanbul, not
Constantinople,
Constantinople.
and Istanbul, and Constantinople, but no one's about the Turks.
Yeah, I mean that was an interesting cover that they did there. But yeah, Birdhouse in Your Soul, it defines that sort of era. I was just going to check
Yeah,
the year.
it's a very that kind of late 90s, I would say, maybe
Yeah, I think
mid
it was
90s.
a mid 90s type thing.
I will say this is a band that I've not thought of in a long time. Were they super popular and I missed that, or
No, I think in the UK they were probably considered a one-hit wonder with Birdhouse in Your Soul.
I mean, it's definitely I could easily see it get picked up by bands too because it's like it's C major, like it'd be pretty easy to play.
If it's in C major, you can play all the chords on the piano just like without any of the
Mm-hmm.
black notes in there.
Just right there. Yep. So I could see that being a thing.
There
I
we
like
are.
that that's the thing Tim goes to. Well, if you're on the keyboard, you can do this.
Yeah, yeah. With my limited knowledge of music theory, of which I know basically nothing.
I like how, like, and it's funny though, because if you've ever watched Tim play the guitar, he's an amazing guitarist, but he cracks people up when he's like, yeah, that those words mean nothing to me.
We was in band practice the other day, and I said to the bass player. He said, "Well, we said, what am I playing here?" I said, "Oh, I said it's like a G minus one." And he's like, "What are you talking
What
about?"
does that even mean, Tim?
Well, it's like G and then down one fret.
Oh, so I was thinking of like, because I was thinking like the G on like the ukulele. I'm like, dude, does he want me to lift one finger? That's what I instantly thought when I heard G minus one. But wouldn't that
Yeah.
be that would be like an open? So I don't know. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm currently recording a new video masterpiece. I haven't recorded the video yet, but I put the I almost finished the backing track. It will have vocals on it, ladies and gentlemen. This will be a well second because I put vocals on my Love Shack video, but it will have vocals on it, and there are some guitar harmonies on it.
Is it about sleeping this time? Is it any sleepy time related things?
No, it's not. It's yet again another 80s TV show theme.
Oh wow, that's not on brand if I've ever heard it.
But there's a piece in it where it's got like a line at the beginning that's all done in harmonies. And I really should understand how you do guitar harmonies because I don't really know. I just do it through trial and error. And you go, oh, that'll work. And I have no
At least you're
idea.
honest, Tim. I mean,
Yeah, you
I
play
mean,
you play on a loop a few times and you play a few things and you think, oh, that works. And then you that's
well,
your part.
I mean, it can't be that hard because really you're playing the same thing over and over again. You're just layering it by pitch, but kind of like the pitch in a way. So I feel like it wouldn't be that hard to figure it out.
Yeah, I normally do it in octaves to thicken it,
That
and
makes
then you
sense.
find the harmony line that
Yeah.
fits with it, and then you
Yeah.
add that in, and then you pan bits of it left and pan bits of it right, and then when you listen to
Somebody
it,
out there is screaming at us right now, going, "They know nothing."
no, and I don't.
But Tim's like, and I will never claim to. So moving along.
But there we go. All right. Well, let's do two or three more.
Okay.
Now, this is a song I heard the other day that I'd forgotten about, and I'm very interested to know whether you even know this song. Do
Okay.
you remember an 80s pop act called Living in a Box?
No.
And the reason I ask you because Hannah had never heard this before. So it was a band called Living in a Box, and they famously had their first single was just called Living in a Box.
Well, I mean, aren't houses just kind of living in boxes?
Sort of, but that was not the reason I picked this one out.
Okay, moving along.
Yeah, they had a song called "Blow the House Down,"
Okay,
and
well,
it's
that's
a kind
very
of
on brand.
yeah, and it's sort of a 80s pop song. If you heard it, never having heard it before, you would hear it. And you go, yeah, this is kind of mid 80s
You could pick out the genre pretty easily.
chart pop type thing. But the interesting thing is it has a Brian May guitar solo in it. I don't know how that happened.
That's random. But it's almost as random as the Queen 5 thing.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume that their engineer knew his engineer, or he knew somebody, or they knew somebody. But I mean, it's a little drop-in solo, and then the beginning of it is like pretty standard stuff, and then at the end it goes into all harmony guitars, and it's like I played it in the car when I was out with Hannah the other day, and I told her, and she listened to it, and she said, "Yeah, that couldn't be anybody else."
But it's also like, could you imagine being a member of this band and they're just like, your producer's like, hey, did you know we were able to get Brian May for this? And they're like, what? Like he just shows up and they're like, how did that happen? Like, did somebody had to be cousins or something?
So, like, there's also another song. Are you familiar with a pop act called Fuzzbox?
No.
Now, they were in sort of probably early 80s. They were an all-girl group.
Okay.
They were originally a punk band. And they were sort of led down the sort of pop five attractive people standing in a row route.
Okay.
And they had a song called Self, which again has a Brian May guitar solo in it. And it's just like, how does that happen?
Dollar signs, I guess. I don't know.
Well, he doesn't. He never. Well, that's the thing. Brian May is in the process of re-releasing all of his solo work, and
Yeah.
being a Brian May nerd, I am. he said there's a bunch of things he wants to do. And one of the ones he wants to do is release a collaborations album where he's played solos and things like that. And apparently, one of the things he always does, if he does a solo or he collaborates with somebody, he never takes any money and he never takes any royalties. All he wants is the ability to publish that song himself later on if he wants to.
Maybe it's just like he happens to hear these songs and he likes them. He just happens to really like this song and thought, maybe I want to publish that one down the road. Like he's got like a sample that gets sent to him or something.
Yeah, I mean, I think, back in these days, you would have to go into a studio and do it. I mean, now,
Yeah.
I mean, I've played solos on people's recordings before, and, they send you a file. You sit in front of your computer, you fire up your Zoom modeler, you hit the button on the keyboard, you record it a couple of times, do a bit of editing, and then email the
Bingo.
WAV file off, and then it's done. But, then you would have to go into a studio to do it. But, I mean,
Yeah.
Allerton Hall, he has his own studio, so it's not a big leap.
Well, there you go, guys. Random fact that none of us knew we didn't know.
Well, there you go. All right. Well, let's go on to one that I know you're definitely going to be super familiar with, and this
Okay.
is from our friends Led Zeppelin.
I've heard of those people, yeah.
Yep, and this is "Houses of the Holy."
I kind of, not the song I was thinking, but this one did come to mind when you first said House, but this is not the first song that came to mind. It was like the third one down.
Okay.
Mostly because I think that Led Zeppelin, even though for some reason, and I stand by this, I know Led Zeppelin is an English band, but they were so popular in America.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, they are so ingrained in US culture. They're ingrained more in US culture than they are ever in UK culture.
And I'm not exactly sure why, but like if I didn't know, like if you did, you know what I'm saying? Like if I didn't know Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, all of them, John Bonham, if I didn't know, like know for a fact they were from England, if you just asked, I would have thought Led Zeppelin was American.
Yeah, and they famously didn't release any singles in the UK.
Really?
Yep, they didn't release any singles.
I wonder why.
I don't know. Stairway to Heaven, it was available on a 7-inch, but only for use in jukeboxes.
That's so weird.
Isn't that,
And
isn't that strange?
because like that's like their home. You think they'd want to be popular in their home.
Yeah, but as I've said to you before, I used to work with a guy from Brazil when I lived in England, and he was a huge fan of UK rock music. He loved UK rock music.
Okay.
And he said when him and his wife moved to the UK, he was expecting rock clubs and turn on the radio and hear Led Zeppelin. And, he expected it to be this wealth of this music that he loved, that he grew up with. And he said he got here and he said that every radio station was playing top 40. And he said he just couldn't find it.
I guess I would have probably thought that too. But now that you've kind of talked about it, but yeah, it is 100% true. For some reason, there's a few bands that we've talked about that are very similar like this, Tim, but that is one that if you took out the knowledge and you just asked me on the street, I would assume American.
Yeah.
So that's why Houses of Holy probably popped in my head when you started talking about houses, because their music is just everywhere.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, let's move on to one more song, and then
Okay.
if this is not the Stevie Nicks song, you shout out Stevie Nicks and you reveal your house song. How's that?
Okay, let's do it.
Okay. This is by the Animals, and this is a song which is a traditional song. It's not their actual song. This is the House of the Rising Sun.
Not Stevie Nicks, but I will reveal it shortly.
Okay.
With that being said, a song I am very, very, very familiar with. I have probably sang this song karaoke by the fire with every person who's ever knows how to play a guitar and every other thing that you could think of 1,000 times.
Yes.
It's a huge song, I think, in the South. Have you played this in a band before?
Oh, more times
Yeah.
than I care to remember.
Yeah. So, and I mean, this is one of those songs that it's to the point now where I almost don't want to hear it anymore. Like, do you know what I mean, though, Tim?
Oh, 100%.
I actually remember one night I had a friend, this is probably 15 years ago, who had recently decided he wanted to learn the guitar, as everybody does. And we had a bonfire out back. And this was the only song he knew how to play. And so I remember singing it like 4 times that night. We might have been under the influence of alcohol, but I do remember singing House of the Rising Sun a lot.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about this recording is that, back in the day when you'd have recording sessions on tape, you'd book an engineer and you only have so much tape left. They
Yeah.
had a little bit of tape left, like 2 or 3 minutes of tape left. And this is a song they used to play in sound checks because it's an old traditional song. So they just recorded it on the fly in the first take. And that is what you hear on this recording.
So good though. And the lead singer's voice is wonderful. It's
Oh,
they did a great job.
yeah, Eric Burden is a monster singer. I'm not sure if he's still with us, but the sound of his vocals are amazing.
I can agree with you on that. And that he really shines in this song because of the intensity and the gravity in his voice. And that's kind of the point of this song.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's the end of my list. Now, Joy, you're going to reveal your Stevie Nicks song.
All right, Stevie Nicks. So I realize the song doesn't actually say house in it or home, but there's a reason why it relates. It's Stand by REM. For some reason, when you said house or home, my brain said stand in the place where we live now. But I don't think that song says house or home anywhere.
It probably doesn't, but Joy, that's on brand for you, and I would expect nothing less.
You see how I got there?
Sure.
It's like the time me and you talked about Devo Whip It, and I was like, are they wearing traffic cones in their head? And you're like, no, they're flower pots. And you're like, what traffic cones are you seeing there, Joy, when you're driving? But yeah, that was the song.
Okay. Well. Thank you for exclusively revealing that. I'm sure our listeners are on the edge of their seats all the way through the episode.
And then I will say the next song was Home, like Home, Let Me Go. That song, and then it was yeah, that's pretty much those are the two. But it's just funny because after I made that big deal about I always find a song that matches, I was like, that doesn't say house or home at all. All right. Well, what do you want to leave the people with?
Just be incredibly kind to everyone who you meet.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.
To remind me of another day to